Would you turn your Bibles, please, to 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 18. 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 18. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. In this series, we want to talk about the subject of pornography. We will talk about how to protect ourselves as church leaders and protecting the flock. Now, you might ask the question, is this really relevant? Is this something that we need to talk within the church setting? Well, let me give you 3 reasons why I believe that this is a very important topic. First, I want you to hear God's heart on the matter. The extensive focus in the Bible against sexual sins, adultery, fornication, and such reminds us again and again sexual purity is very important to the Lord. Nothing displays spite towards God in trying to destroy what He holds as significant. And in trying to understand pornography, we must understand that it's the same evil as sexual immorality, dressed differently. And so God's command towards what we might call the 21st century pornography is the same as His injunction against sexual immorality that was found in the first century. Second, people need help. There are many in our churches who need help, but they have nowhere to go. You see, what happens in churches, they are unable to come without being judged. And on the other hand, they have fooled themselves to think that this is private and the church does not need to get involved. We need to make them understand that the pornography actually makes false promises, and church is a place that they can come to and find solace because we have Jesus Christ. Romans chapter 1 says they exchanged the truth of God for a lie. Pornography is a lie, and they need to be made aware of it. Pornography is deceptive. They think that it does not harm anyone else. It's just skin deep, but no, it's soul deep. It affects relationship. It breaks down everything that we hold sacrosanct as a Christian. Here are some effects of pornography that Patrick F. Fagan, PhD, commenting on the research done by Marriage and Religion Research Institute, found. First is the effect on the family. They said pornography viewing leads to loss of interest in good family relationship, and it's a pathway to infidelity and divorce. Next is the effect on the individual. Pornography is addictive, and neuroscientists are finding that there is this biological substrate to addiction, a chemical change in the brain, if you may. People tend to get bored quickly, leading to more perverse forms of pornography. They also found that the main defense against pornography are close family life, a good marriage, a good relationship between parents and children, and a deliberate parental monitoring of internet use. So we saw God's heart in this matter as to the reason why we need to touch on pornography. The second being people in need. And the third, that we as leadership have a responsibility. Churches have a responsibility to warn and to teach and to equip. Just as we do against sexual immorality, it's the same dressed in different garb as we saw previously. So therefore, the injunction of teaching that we have, do we not have it in the Great Commission itself? In Mathew 20:28, it says, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. Consider Paul. He says it so well in his example in Acts chapter 20, Acts 20 and 26 to 27. It says, therefore, I testify to you this day that I'm innocent of the blood of all, for I did not shrink from declaring to you the whole counsel of God. Here Peter in 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11 says, Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passion of the flesh which wage war against your soul. Before we proceed, I think it's important for us to understand a little more of what is pornography. In a general sense, as how the world sees it, you would find that the world finds it difficult to actually define pornography because they don't have a general point of reference. Here is a famous quote by late Justice Porter Stewart of 1964 when faced with this case of indecency. He said, "I shall not today attempt further to define obscenity, and perhaps I could never succeed in intelligibly doing so, but I know it when I see it." What the justice was saying is that I can understand it, but I'm not able to defend it legally. And the pornography industry has actually taken that ambiguity to its advantage, to a $400 billion advantage. So if you were to look at a secular definition, you would say, printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity. That seems like okay, but then you start to ask the question, what does explicit mean? In fact, there's the other case where the question was asked by a lawyer trying to defend his client. He says, if you were to compare the nude sculpture of David by Michelangelo with that of what my client did, would you consider David to be pornography? And they didn't have an answer. So therefore, we need to understand from the Bible, because that's where we get the clearest understanding of what we're trying to deal with. And when we look at the Bible, we must understand one thing. The Greek word is porneo, from which we get the word pornography. In the Bible is used for illicit sexual activity or fornication 35 times in the New Testament, even in the verse that we read in the 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. So how would we define it from the biblical perspective? I want to say anything that provides an immoral outlet to satisfy a sinful or sexual desire. Anything that provides an immoral outlet to satisfy a sinful or sexual desire. Now, this definition actually covers a wide range, and that is because pornography is a continuum. I want to quote what Dr. Victor Klein says. He says there are 5 stages of addiction, and that to break this addiction is worse than breaking the addiction from cocaine. The 5 steps, he says, is early exposure, addiction, escalation, desensitization, and acting out sexually. I want to give you a very simplistic attempt in trying to understand the slide between the continuum from the first glance to getting to acting out these fantasies. So step 1 is a second lingering look at someone of the opposite gender. Second, a magazine on the rack that we subconsciously thumb through as we wait our turn at the cashier's register. Third, enjoying a popular movie but known for its violence, foul language, and sexual content. Fourth, a one-click stand with online provocative banner ads, especially seen on social media. Fifth, intentionally watching a pay-per-view movie in a hotel room while traveling alone. And sixth, frequently fantasizing over images in print or online sites. And seventh, acting out private sexual acts over digital and print media or visiting a prostitute. You see, the slide is gentle. Individuals experiences may vary, but the broad road to destruction is the same. And since pornography is a continuum, many people are unaware that they are on that already in the experiences that they do. So what is the leader's role? What do they have to do? I think it's important that they direct their attention to the person of Jesus Christ, because He is the perfect answer. He is the one who is the total solution against this addiction of pornography. I want you to see how Jesus handled the woman by the well in Samaria. We read about that in John chapter 4, and we must understand that that story is a story of grace. You see, Jesus was met with her, and He could have demanded that she would leave all her practices and her behavior before he would start talking to her. You see, she was looking for meaning and satisfaction and identity and sexual intimacy. But what Jesus does is he leads her to himself, to the living water that can quench that thirst. Instead of leaving her in and feeling guilty, he leads her to that full satisfaction in himself. And I think that is our role as church leaders, that we would lead them to this different and higher and a complete satisfaction that we can find in Jesus Christ, lovingly, gently, and without judging, because we must realize that we who have been the recipients of that same grace, and now we offer it to the others. So what do we do in summary? People need help, and church is able to help because of Jesus Christ. And from the Bible's point of view, it is, which is more comprehensive, we have come to believe that porn can include anything that immorally satisfies lust or sexual desire. And the only way they can find an answer is to lead them to Jesus, because he is the perfect answer. He alone can satisfy as no one else can.